Welcome to Justice Matters. I am Denise George, Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Justice Matters is a program aimed to inform, engage, and empower you with knowledge of Virgin Islands laws that affect our everyday lives and our entire community. Today's topic is men standing up against domestic violence. Remember that what makes a violent crime a crime of domestic violence is the relationship between the offender and the victim. Our laws define domestic violence as the occurrence of any violent crime against a spouse, former spouse, parent, child, or any other person related by blood or marriage, a household member, a person with whom the victim has a child in common, who is or has been in a sexual or otherwise intimate relationship with the victim. Domestic violence crimes include assault, kidnapping, threats, stalking, rape, murder, child abuse, and all other violent crimes. It is said that strong families and domestic relationships are the cornerstone of every community, just like ours, and violence within that foundation permeates to violence widespread throughout our entire community. While our domestic violence laws apply to both the male and female, I am focusing on the males today because studies show that about 90% of reported domestic violence offenders are male with female victims, and men are significantly more likely to be repeat perpetrators and significantly more likely than women to use physical violence, threats, and harassment. That is why it is so important when men in our community take a strong stance in stepping in and stepping up to stop, treat, and prevent domestic violence at the core. On today's show, we will talk to just one of those men who is doing just that. He is Neville Williams from the Men Terminating Violence program at the Family Resource Center in St. Thomas. Welcome to Justice Matters.
Thank you so very much.
I want to ask you about your work in the area of addressing domestic violence issues in the Virgin Islands, which is a very important issue that we deal with, and especially that you are a male, and that although domestic violence is something that's not gender specific, the vast majority, at least 80 to 90% of the victims tend to be female, and perpetrators also tend to be male. Tell us about your work in the area of domestic violence. What do you do?
I volunteer my time at the Family Resource Center. I have been doing that for 18 years. I first got contacted with Family Resource Center when I was a psychology major at the University of the Virgin Islands. Had to do an internship program, and so I was selected there by Miss Sandra. That time she was Hodge was her last name, and once I completed my internship, I got interested in the program, and so I continued up to this point. Was myself and another lady, and then Barney, Miss Roy came in. And so Miss Roy and I, we are co-facilitators of the Men Terminating Violence program there at the Family Resource Center for the past 17, 18 years.
Tell me about the Men Terminating Violence program. What does it mean and what does it do?
It's a program that works with those men that have relational issues with their, spouse, their girlfriend, and in terms of jail time, the court will order them for counseling. It's a program that lasts for 26 weeks. So about 6 months. We do two hours every Tuesday, so 2 hours per week. So we have been meeting with men, and we look at we have, a wheel that deals with, power and control. And so we look at it from that perspective.
Okay, so let's talk about the power and control part, because that's oftentimes like almost like the foundation of those escalations of violence, I'm told. What do you teach or counsel on with respect to power and control?
What drives this power and control mechanism, this desire to control one life. I basically came out of an abusive relationship in terms of seeing my mother being abused and told me not to get in there. And what happened for some reason in the psychic of men, lands this idea that they have to be in control. As you mentioned earlier, as we started, majority of the domestic violence, meted out against female. And so from that perspective, we would, teach them that it's a learned behavior, and anything that is learned can be unlearned. And so we looked at their belief system, and so that has to be changed as well. And that is key here. And we also look at the I statement, communication, help them to communicate. And so instead of, the blame game, I feel, upset when you don't do this. And so from that perspective, we work with them to change their thinking and to try to have them to see things a different way.
How do you get the clients who come for counseling?
Majority of our clients are referred to us from the court. There are probably 2% of our clients who would walk in, who recognize that they have a problem and they need help. And that is very few, and they would come in and join the session.
So you talked about the power and control, and then you also talked about changing behavior. You mentioned I instead of you. What are the other ways that you address changing the behavior and changing the mindset of offenders?
Other ways we look at is the fact of relationship. Relationship, as we look at it from the perspective, is hard work, and there's no question about it. Because here you are bringing two people are coming together from probably different backgrounds, and once you get into relationship, you have to understand, and as we teach them, that it is hard work. But hard work, can become easy if you are given the proper tools, the proper resources to get this done. And so, especially the guys that volunteer, as they walk in, we, commend them for this, because they recognize they need some tools, they need some resources, which would help them to manage the relationship that they are in, and to work, well with their partners. And so from this perspective, once you understand, once you're given the resources, for example, we talk about, the pillars of a relationship, trust, we talk about honesty, we talk about love, we talk about communication, which is a big piece of this relationship. And once, any one of those pillars are compromised, the relationship is in danger of falling apart. And so these pillars are to be kept, secure, and the relationship will lead to success.
Oh, so you go towards learning or relearning what needs to be the foundation of the relationship as a part of curtailing the violence. Is that right?
That's correct.
How receptive do you find that the clients are?
They are very, very receptive. First of all, when they first get there, especially those that are referred to us by the court, you can see the anger and you can see the resistance in them for the first, 3-4 weeks. Because they would say things like, a woman get me in this problem, the judge was a woman, and now I come to counseling a woman. So all women. And but those who are there in the program before, we find that they also help them to settle in. And we find that, they are very, very receptive, because majority of them would go back to the court and say that, we really thank you for sending us there, because we have found ourselves. We have men who turn around and come and volunteer the time to talk to the men that are there. In the 17 years, we have had just about 3 repeats, coming back to the program.
You mean from the court, where the court sent them back? Just 3 in the 17 years?
Out for the 17 years, that's correct.
Does everybody start at the same time? Let me ask that question. Or is it staggered according to when they're referred?
It's according to when they're referred. When Barney and I first took over the program, once the program started, you had to wait until that program finished, till the 26 weeks. But then we did some changing up, and so we have people coming during the course of the program, rather than having them waiting for 26 weeks to join a program.
What do you think the effect is when it is a male, as you are a male, and you're able to relate to the males? Do you find that is easier, or that has any kind of impact in how you reach them, or not?
Yes, it is easier, and I find that they are very receptive, and many a times I have to, interject and get in there, because when Barney, sometimes, when men came in the program and they are new, they are sort of we are very resistant to the female, because, as I mentioned before, they feel it's a female, get them there, judge is a female, and what have you. What we try to do is to have both perspective in the room. We don't want to be lopsided. So it is very, very essential to have a woman's perspective and a male perspective. But most of the time when tripping, you can see, some of the guys get on the edge of the seat, and they started, to really listen and focus. And then after the program, you'd hear that we would like you to talk more, we'd like you to speak more, and so on.
Do you find that over the past 17 years, do you find that a lot of the men in the community, I know it's referred by court, most of your clients are referred by the court, but do you find that a lot of the males in the community seem to need that kind of emotional support or bonding by other males with these types of programs?
Most certainly. As I often tell the guys at the center that, they are doing me a huge favor, because I come in there every Tuesday to deal with them. It strengthens my relationship at home, and so if the men in the community, because one of the things that I have, mentioned to them, whenever we get in relationship, a lot of time, it is a work in progress. We are on the job training, because many of us, come from single parent home. So we didn't have a male figure. The idea, the perception that we have a male is just to, come and do what we need to do and then just move on and what have you. And so we find ourselves, really in a situation where we are on the job, those of us in a relationship, on the job training. And so we need this kind of thing that we are doing at the center, so that they can be well-rounded and have a pretty good idea of how to manage the relationship that they find themselves in.
Do you teach anything or counsel on the heat of the moment type things, like what skills they can have, or anger management skills when, you know, that anger rises up, they're in that argument, or they're angry about whatever with their relationships or family members? Are there skills that can be applied in what to do when they're getting to that breaking point?
As I normally said, you know, I mean, I raised with a single mom, 14 of us, and you know, a very strong lady, very, you know, wise lady. And one of the things that I remember her saying to me and, you know, the others, he, she who angers you controls you. And I would say that to the guys. Also, he or she who learns to control his or her spirit is mightier than him that taketh an entire nation. And in the heat of the moment, we normally teach them some breathing skills. You know, you can take a time out, you know, go probably for a drive, go for a walk, and then, you know, you come back and you deal with the situation. Never walk away from the situation and don't come back and deal with it. They talk about pushing my button. You know, if your button is exposed, it would be pushed. So you need to find a way to cover it up, to cover up that button, however you get, so that no one would see, to push it. And, you know, so from these perspective and these point of views, I mean, we teach them these things so that they would have, you know, a sense of, you know, control over that moment, because those moments are going to come.
How receptive are many of your clients when you at least first tell them about walking away? When, in a lot of ways, the way that persons are socialized, I think particularly males are socialized, like if you're in a confrontation, you confront. But to walk away from the situation, why that's so important to avoid, you know, committing an act of violence.
Men, you know, are socialized to confront. You know, walking away is telling them that you are weak. You know, you are, well, as some of them would say, a sissy. You know, we have had, you know, testimonies of guys coming back and said, you know, in the class that, look, Barney, Neville, guys, you know, this week I had a situation and I walked away and I calmed down and I breathed, and then I come back and deal with before time. That person would have had it. You know, that's what they say. But they are receptive. And the thing is, I think that even though they were socialized different, you know, men are socialized different, and even though, you know, they were trying to live up to this macho thing, somewhere within their belief system, within themselves, they are looking for an alternative.
If a person really wants to get to be a part of this program and feels that he needs help, how does he contact you?
Those that we have had, you know, who walked in to us, the program was referred to them by, you know, a friend of theirs who were in the program and recognized that, hey, look, I mean, you need some help. The other ways, I mean, I have once or twice, I was on WSTA, and I, you know, was promoting the program so that, you know, trying to reach men in the community. There are, you know, some members of the Family Resource Center who normally go out there and they would also, promote the program.
How important do you think it is that more men like you who are working against domestic violence, how important is it for them to come out visibly in our community to work and do work against domestic violence?
Oh, this is vitally important, very, very important. The more males that we can have on the front line, it is an inspiration to our young men that are coming up, and also our daughters and our sisters, our cousins, our neighbors. It is a real inspiration to see that it is time and there are men that are taking this stance.
What would you say to those to men out there, or males, even young males or older males who do not seem to understand the impact or the wrongfulness of domestic violence?
I've spoken to young men, and my message to them that this is someone, with feeling just like you, an adult who has a mind and who is independent and who needs to be loved, who needs to be cherished and to be taken care of. And those men who are out there and see women as property, there to be used, what have you. I really, would like to reach out to them, to sit down with them and to have an in-depth conversation to sort of change that thinking, to show them that there's a different way out of this and how we can live in harmony.
What do you say? What do you talk about as far as explaining the importance as well as the significance of consent? Because that's always at the basis of it. Consent and lack of consent.
I start, from the point of view that consent, it is not passive, it's active, and it is freely given and knowingly. And so people are not to use their powers to gain consent. And so I normally use the example that if I have 5 bread and you ask me for one and I did not answer you, doesn't give you the right to take it. For some reason, there is an entitlement here. For most men, they feel entitled. I am entitled to that.
Do you find that entitlement is the basis of the behavior, even for those who aren't married or in a relationship? Is there's still that sense of entitlement that you talk about, when they might not even know the person that well, or they do know the person that well, but they may not be in a relationship?
It's across, the board for some reason, whether or not. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons that when you get into a relationship now, it just becomes more pronounced.
It becomes dangerous as well, and just not just in the relationship, but just publicly, right? How do you curb that sense of entitlement, though, that false sense of entitlement?
It is not easy because this is a belief system that needs to be adjusted, that need to be changed. And so it is going to take some time to work on this, because out of their socialization, out of their background, where they come from, they may have seen this practice. And as I normally tell the men, and just even the students here at UVA, when I get the opportunity, that if you happen to tell the brain something long enough, it believes it. We are going to work from this perspective of, what you have been telling the brain for, all these years, and what you've been seeing before your eye. This is not the reality of life.
I think that especially there is hope when there are organizations and services and programs like yours. And as you indicated, a number of, if other males in our community, and we know we have quite a few, can also, step in and stand against domestic violence visibly and really mentor a lot of our young males. And then we change certain mindsets, perhaps. So in your 17 years then, and it seems so, and you could tell me, how have you seen as far as the ability, what has it shown you as far as the ability of persons to really change their mindset?
I've seen guys who came back and volunteered their time. We have seen some guys, presently we have some guys who have finished the course, but decide that they are going to stay on longer. And I've seen, a number of changes, and the ability to change is, just exciting. It's just there.
Has there ever been any efforts in your program or that you know about with respect to going out to the schools or going out and speaking to young men, children, boys, regarding domestic violence and sexual assault?
Yes, I've been to many of the schools and shared with them. I have been to the National Guard, and shared with them. I've been to several, churches as well.
What is the name of the program again? Say it again for the public.
The MTV program, Men Terminating Violence.
Men Terminating Violence. Well, thank you very much for that program. It's got to be one of the great crime prevention programs, violence prevention programs that we have. We appreciate your work in it, and thank you so much for joining us on Justice Matters.
So thank you so very much, Justice. I appreciate that.
On the next Justice Matters, we will speak to Bonnie Roy, who facilitates through Family Resource Center treatment of both female and male domestic violence offenders at the cornerstone of prevention. Remember the numbers for Family Resource Center on St. Thomas, 340-776-3966 for counseling services for offenders and of victims of domestic violence. Also, the Women's Coalition of St. Croix, the Men's Coalition of St. Croix as well. And please just get involved. Call 911 if you see or hear something involving domestic violence. Somebody might really need your help. Thank you so much again for joining us on this episode of Justice Matters.